You've been around a long time. You've seen cycles.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen how this market could change. And, you've talked about how, you were in a market when things were bad.
Yep. Wrote a book about it.
Yeah. What do you think of the current market? What do you think we're facing with a lot of people overextending themselves? What are you finding is a big issue right now?
Well, first of all, we need help. We need help from the government, and we're not getting it. I mean, they're sticking it to us. And look, I'm not allowed to really get political on that show, so you don't.
Hey, you can do it here.
And I can do it here. Although being in real estate, you don't want to go out and pick a party because you'll lose 50% of your clients, or in Canada, you might lose, 75% of your clients. So, but I will tell you right now that this government, the Liberals in federal government, this what they're doing with the capital gains tax is they just don't get it, because they thought they'd go after the rich. Well, if you did your homework, it's not just the rich that own second properties, or cottages. It's the middle class and even some poor people that want to get ahead. That's the way they can get ahead. Yeah. And we're sticking it to them. Like properties that I've owned for 25 years, they've got their hands in my pocket, and they're, and they want some of that money that I've worked for. So they don't get it. So something's got to be done there. But back in...
And to that point, Al, like we don't have pensions, right? We don't have...
You're looking at it,
right? We have to create... I'm in the same boat, right? We're establishing a pension fund for ourselves, because when we retire, like CPP and old age aren't going to cut it.
No.
Okay. You need additional income sources, and rental properties, investment properties, and that sort of type of investment are what helps us get to that retirement stage and allow us to continue living the lifestyle we built up to live. When you have everybody in your pocket, it gets fucking frustrating, right? And, I don't buy into only 0.13% is impacted. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
We saw that clip on the news just recently, the old lady who had 2 properties that's going to get dinged $40,000 because of this capital gains increase. Yeah, there's going to be people out there saying, Vince, you got enough. Well, how much do you need? Well, you know what? I worked hard for it. I paid my taxes.
It's none of their business. It's your money that you've worked hard for. You've dealt with tenants.
And it's frustrating, right? Because we're providing a residence for people. Mm-hmm. I think we're fair landlords. I want my tenants to enjoy their space, and I want to be fair.
Yeah.
But how much more do they need to take? And the city politics doesn't help either, right? They're just NIMBYisms, and this high density is not going to happen.
No.
And they're just putting up roadblocks, slowing the city down to a crawl.
Yeah.
Nobody could go anywhere.
Well, as I say on the show all the time, the government's got to stay out of real estate, because they'll screw it up every time. And that's what they're doing now. And whether they know what they're doing, or, I know they don't know what they're doing. That's why, we're in the situation. But back in the last time we saw things really rough was in 1989. And it's funny because I started buying income properties back in 1985. And I wrote a book about it. And I couldn't have wrote the book during that period because I was humiliated, because I basically went broke.
You talked about it before.
Yeah, when I was 26, I was on a beach in Florida with the boys in a tournament down there. And in an hour, one of them said to me, Al, because I had 48 houses, and this was in 88 when things were moving along. They said, Al, in the last hour, how much money did you make? And I went, 26, right? I go, I think I made $5,000 this hour. And, and that's, I wasn't a realtor yet. I was, basically I was just a slumlord. And so then what happened, the problem was I had 48 houses, but to get 48, I had an equity base of 7%.
Because it was a different world back then.
But interest rates were 24%. And when I was too young and stupid to know that I'm living on an edge, because the prices dropped 10%. I'm now
underwater.
I'm underwater. So I was worth about $5 million at that summer in 88. Well, the next year in 89, we're down there, and the market had changed. Things had tanked. And one of the smart asses says, Al, in the last hour, how much money did you lose?
Probably more than
I think I lost about $6,000 but I got my real estate license and I started selling, all of a sudden this new kid on the street's got all these listings. They're my own houses. So but the reason I got so many houses, there was a thing, and I'm not sure if you remember, but there was CIBC had a program, and mortgage was assumable without qualification.
You just have to take over the house.
Yeah. And the guy before, so you'd pay him an extra houses at that time were about $75,000. So you pay him an extra $5,000 and he'd be, okay, great. You just gave me $5,000, but he's still on the hook if you go bad. Yeah. And but that was a marketing tool, assuming mortgages, right? Like everybody was doing it because no one could pay. Yeah.
So if somebody was willing to make the payments for you, sign it over.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
You're still on the hook on the covenant, which is the mortgage.
And that's the thing. And so when, people were starting to go south in a hurry, it was falling apart. Now I know since, CIBC got rid of that, but that's how I was, I bought 98 houses in my 20s and that's crazy, but
it can't happen today.
It can, but not me, not someone with no money.
Yeah.
But what happened was I ended up, it cost me my marriage because my ex-wife couldn't live like that. And it's
hard.
It was really hard. And so that went south. And I almost, got out of real estate because I had a real bad taste for it. But I go, you know what? Suddenly I've got all these listings and I kind of like this. So I was working for Suncor. I quit that job and I got in as a real estate agent. And looking back, man, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, 89, 90 was an interesting time because I started with TD Bank at that time. And I was in the mortgage department, but not the fun part. I was in the mortgage recovery unit, meeting with the bailiff and taking over homes. So it wasn't a lot of fun. But what it did teach me is that shit does happen and things could go bad. And I think we lived in a market where people didn't think that can happen.
Yeah.
When you live it like we did and see the pain and the shit that can happen, it gives you perspective that, hey, it's not always a fun ride. It could